Julian Westfield stood outside the weather department building in the poorest district of the city, his heart hammering against his ribs. The envelope in his hand contained documents that had arrived at his penthouse that morning: hospital records, birth certificates, and photographs that turned his world inside out. For 3 years, he had lived with the belief that his wife had betrayed him. For 3 years, he had buried himself in work, building his technology empire while trying to forget the woman he had loved more than life itself. The elevator was broken. So Julian climbed 4 flights of stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. He had memorized the apartment number from the documents. When he reached the door, he could hear soft singing from inside. A woman's voice, gentle and tired, humming a lullaby that made his chest ache. The confrontation Julian knocked 3 times. The singing stopped. Footsteps approached, light and hesitant. When the door opened, time seemed to stop. Natasha stood before him, thinner than he remembered, her once bright eyes now guarded and weary. In her arms, she held a small child with dark curls. Behind her, another identical child played on a worn carpet. Julian. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Not surprised, not angry, just empty. I need to talk to you. His prepared speech vanished from his mind. All he could see were the 2 little boys, their faces mirror images of his own childhood photographs. The same green eyes, the same dimples, the same stubborn chin. Natasha shifted the child in her arms. Owen is sleeping. If you wake Lucas, this conversation is over before it starts. She stepped aside, letting him enter. The apartment was tiny, barely bigger than his walk-in closet at home. But it was clean, organized, with the kind of careful precision that comes from having nothing to spare. Toys were neatly stacked in one corner. A small kitchen area held mismatched dishes. 2 cribs sat against the far wall, covered with blankets that looked like they came from a donation center. The truth emerged. Julian held up the envelope. I received these documents this morning. Birth records, medical files, DNA results. These boys are mine. Congratulations on your detective work. Natasha settled Owen into one of the cribs with practiced care. Did you come here for a medal? I came here for answers. His voice cracked. You never told me you were pregnant. Natasha turned to face him, and the look in her eyes made him take a step back. I tried to tell you. I came to your office 17 times. Security threw me out. I sent 43 letters. None of them reached you. I called from every phone number one could find. Every call was blocked. I stood outside your mother's charity events in the rain, begging to speak to you. Her security team threatened to have me arrested. Julian felt the floor shift beneath him. That is impossible. I would have known. Would you? Natasha crossed her arms. Or were you too busy believing whatever poison your mother fed you? He pulled out more papers from the envelope. I saw the evidence 3 years ago. The photographs of you with another man. The witness statements. The paternity test that proved the baby could not be mine. There was no paternity test. Natasha's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled. I was never asked to provide DNA. Your mother created fake documents. The man in those photographs was an actor she hired. The witnesses were people she paid. Every piece of evidence was manufactured. The weight of betrayal Julian sank onto the old couch, his legs no longer able to support him. She would not do that. She did. Natasha moved to the kitchen area, filling a bottle with formula. She told me to my face that I was not good enough for her son. She said I was a nobody trying to trap a rich man. She said you were relieved to be free of me. I never said that. No, but you believed it fast enough. Natasha tested the formula temperature on her wrist. When you walked out, you did not even let me explain. You just accepted that I had betrayed you. 3 years together, and you trusted your mother's lies more than you trusted me. Julian looked at the twins. Owen was sleeping peacefully in his crib. Lucas had stopped playing and was watching the adults with wide, curious eyes. When were they born? December 15th? 3 years ago. Natasha picked up Lucas, who reached for the bottle. I went into labor alone. No money for a private hospital, so I went to County General. The birth was complicated. I almost died from blood loss. The nurses took care of Owen and Lucas while I recovered because I was too weak to hold them. You almost died." The words came out as a whisper. "Yes." Natasha sat in the rocking chair. "Feeding Lucas. Your mother tried to have me flagged as an unfit parent. She contacted social services with false reports. She paid my landlord to evict me. She called every job I applied for and told them I was unreliable. She destroyed every opportunity I had to build a stable life for your sons." The moment of reckoning, Julian stood and walked to Owen's crib. The little boy slept peacefully. One tiny fist curled near his face. Julian reached out, his hand hovering over his son's head, not quite daring to touch. "What are their full names?" "Owen James and Lucas Michael Quinn." Natasha looked at him directly. "I gave them my last name because their father was not there to claim them." The pain of those words hit Julian like a physical blow. "I am so sorry. Sorry does not pay rent. Sorry does not buy formula. Sorry does not give me back 3 years of struggling alone." Natasha's voice finally showed emotion, anger rising to the surface. "Sorry does not change the fact that when it mattered most, you chose your mother's lies over your wife's truth." Lucas finished his bottle, and Natasha lifted him to her shoulder, patting his back gently. The domestic gesture was so natural, so practiced, that Julian realized he had missed everything. First steps, first words, first smiles. 3 years of moments he could never get back. "Let me help you now." He pulled out his wallet. "Let me provide for them, for you." No, the word was final. You do not get to buy your way back into our lives. You do not get to ease your guilt with money. Then what do I get to do? Desperation colored his voice. "Tell me how to fix this." Natasha stood, still holding Lucas. "You cannot fix 3 years of abandonment. You cannot undo the nights I spent hungry so my babies could eat. You cannot erase the fear I felt every time they got sick because I could not afford a doctor. So right now, you get to leave. You get to think about what kind of father you want to be. And maybe, if you prove you are serious, we can talk about supervised visits. Natasha, please, leave Julian." Her voice was firm. "Come back tomorrow if you want to discuss the boys. But tonight I need you gone." Julian moved toward the door, his heart breaking with each step. At the threshold, he turned back. "I never stopped loving you. Love without trust is nothing." Natasha looked away. "And you proved you never truly trusted me at all." The door closed behind him, and Julian stood in the dim hallway, listening to Natasha sing softly to their sons. He had built an empire worth billions, but in this moment, he was the poorest man alive. Julian sat in his car outside Natasha's apartment building for hours after she closed the door on him. He could not drive away, could not move. His phone buzzed repeatedly with business calls, board meeting reminders, investment opportunities. None of it mattered. He watched the light in her window, imagining her inside with their sons, living a life he should have been part of. At midnight, he finally called his private investigator, a man named Thomas Reed, who had worked for the Westfield family for 15 years. Julian's voice was rough when Thomas answered. "I need you to investigate my mother. Everything she did 3 years ago regarding my marriage to Natasha Quinn. I want proof of every lie, every manipulation, every payment she made. I want names, dates, and documentation." Thomas was silent for a long moment. "Are you certain about this? Your mother is not someone who takes kindly to being investigated." "I have never been more certain of anything in my life." "You have 24 hours. Julian ended the call and dialed another number. His father answered on the 4th ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "Did you know I have sons?" Julian asked without greeting. "Twin boys. They are 3 years old. Their names are Owen and Lucas." Robert Westfield's breathing changed. "What are you talking about?" "Natasha was pregnant when I left her. Mother made sure I never knew. She fabricated evidence, hired actors, created fake paternity tests. She destroyed Natasha's life to keep me away from my own children." Julian's hands gripped the steering wheel. "Tell me you did not know." Father's confession, the silence stretched so long Julian thought the call had dropped. Then his father spoke, and his voice carried a weight Julian had never heard before. "Knew your mother was unhappy about your marriage. She said Natasha was not suitable for our family. But the specifics, the extent of what she did? No. I did not ask questions because questioning Victoria never ends well. They live in poverty, father." Julian's voice broke. "My sons wear donated clothes and eat once a day because Natasha cannot afford more. She works 2 jobs and still cannot make rent. And this happened because mother decided my wife was not good enough for the Westfield name." Robert sighed heavily. "Your mother believes she protects our legacy, but what she actually does is destroy anyone who does not fit her vision of perfection. When your sister wanted to marry that teacher, Victoria had him transferred across the country and blacklisted from every school district. When your brother talked about becoming an artist, she had his scholarship offers mysteriously withdrawn. I should have stopped her years ago. I am a coward, Julian. I always have been when it comes to your mother. I am not." Julian started the car. "And if you want any relationship with your grandsons, you will stand with me against her. She will not take this well. I do not care." The evidence mounts by morning. Thomas had preliminary findings. Julian met him at a coffee shop, far from Westfield Company headquarters. The investigator slid a thick folder across the table, his expression grim. "Ow. Your mother is thorough, I will give her that. She created an entire false narrative. The paternity test was fabricated by a lab technician named Dr. Philip Morris. He received $50,000 deposited into an offshore account the same week he produced those results. The photographs were taken by models from elite casting agency. Your mother owns 40% of that agency." Julian flipped through the documents, his stomach turning with each page. The witnesses who claimed they saw Natasha with other men were all employees of Westfield. Enterprises or companies your mother has financial control over. Each received substantial bonuses around the time they gave their statements. Thomas pulled out another stack of papers. "But it gets worse. Your mother used her connections to have Natasha blacklisted from employment. She contacted hospitals, schools, retail chains, even temporary agencies. She told them Natasha was unstable, unreliable, potentially dangerous. She tried to starve her out." Julian's voice was hollow. More than that. She contacted the landlord of every apartment Natasha applied for and paid them to reject her application. She spread rumors through social networks that Natasha was a con artist, a drug addict, a child abuser. None of it was true, but the damage was done. By the time Natasha went into labor, she had nowhere to turn. Thomas pulled out medical records. Natasha arrived at County General Hospital in active labor, alone and terrified. She hemorrhaged after delivery. The doctor said she almost died. She spent 6 days in the hospital because she was too weak to leave. During that time, your mother attempted to have Child Protective Services investigate her as an unfit parent." Julian pushed away from the table, his hands shaking. "She tried to take my children. The social worker saw through it. She noted in her report that the claims appeared to be from someone with a personal vendetta. But your mother did not stop there. She contacted shelters and assistance programs, poisoning those wells too. Every avenue Natasha tried to use for help, your mother blocked." Watching from the shadows, Julian spent the next 3 days watching Natasha from a distance. He followed her to the diner where she worked the breakfast shift, serving coffee and eggs to customers who barely looked at her. He watched her smile at them, that empty professional smile that never reached her eyes. He saw how she moved carefully, favoring her right side. How her hands trembled when she thought no one was looking. After the diner, she went to her second job cleaning office buildings downtown. Julian watched her scrub floors, empty trash cans, polish windows in the building he owned. She worked in his headquarters and had no idea. The irony was bitter and cruel. She finished at 6 in the evening and took 2 buses back to her apartment. By the time she arrived home, exhaustion painted shadows under her eyes. Through the window, Julian watched her hug Grace, the neighbor who watched the twins. He saw her scoop up Owen and Lucas, pressing kisses to their faces, her tiredness vanishing in the presence of her children. This was what he had condemned her to. This endless cycle of work and worry, struggling just to survive. The mother's arrival on the 4th day. Julian arrived at Natasha's apartment with groceries, intending to leave them at the door. Instead, He found his mother's car parked outside. Rage flooded through him as he took the stairs two at a time. Victoria Westfield stood in Natasha's tiny living room as if she owned it, her designer suit and pearl necklace completely out of place. A lawyer stood beside her, briefcase in hand. Natasha sat in the rocking chair with both twins, her face completely blank. "Get out." Julian's voice was deadly quiet. Victoria turned, her smile sharp. "Darling, I am simply solving a problem. I am offering Miss Quinn $10 million to relinquish all parental rights and relocate. It is more than generous. You are trying to buy my children. I am offering her a better life. Look at this place, Julian. Look at how she lives. Is this what you want for your sons? Poverty? Uncertainty? A mother who can barely feed them?" Victoria's voice dripped with false concern. "These boys deserve the Westfield name, the Westfield resources. They deserve better than this. The only reason she lives like this is because you destroyed every opportunity she had." Julian stepped between his mother and Natasha. "You orchestrated her poverty. You sabotaged her career. You isolated her from help. And now you want to use that suffering as justification to steal her children?" The breaking point. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment. "I did what was necessary to protect you from a gold digger who was not worthy of our family. She was my wife. I loved her. You were infatuated. I saved you from making a permanent mistake." Natasha finally spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "Your son asked you to leave. That is the only answer you are getting." Victoria turned to her, contempt clear on her face. "You would rather live like this? You would rather struggle and suffer than accept help? That is not love, dear. That is foolish pride. You call this help?" Natasha stood, still holding the twins. "You destroyed my life, made it impossible for me to work or survive, and now you offer money to take my children. That is not help. That is you trying to erase your crimes. These children deserve stability, education, opportunities, things you clearly cannot provide. They deserve better than a grandmother who thinks love can be bought and children can be traded like property." Natasha's voice remained steady. "They deserve better than being raised by someone so twisted that she destroyed a marriage to maintain her control." Victoria moved forward, and Julian intercepted her. "Mother, I am warning you. Leave now, or what? You will disown me. You cannot walk away from family, Julian. I am your mother. Everything you have, I helped you build. Then I will burn it all down." Julian pulled out his phone and called security at the family estate. "This is Julian Westfield. Margaret Victoria Westfield is no longer authorized to access any property I control. If she attempts entry, contact the police immediately." He ended the call and looked at his mother. "You are done. Done manipulating my life. Done hurting people I love. Done pretending your cruelty is somehow justified." Victoria's face went pale, then red with fury. "That woman is using those children to trap you. She probably is not even certain you are the father. Have you verified anything she claims?" "I verified everything, including the fact that you are a liar who nearly killed my wife through your systematic cruelty. I did what any mother would do to protect her child from disaster." "No." Natasha's voice cut through again. "You did what a narcissist does when someone threatens their control. You could not stand that Julian chose someone you did not approve of, so you destroyed that choice. You made sure I suffered for daring to love him." Victoria's hand shot out, slapping Natasha across the face before anyone could react. The crack echoed in the small apartment. Owen and Lucas both began crying, and Natasha stumbled back, her cheek already reddening. Julian grabbed his mother's wrist, his grip iron tight. "Get out before I forget. You are my mother, and call the police myself. This is not over." Victoria's voice shook with rage. "You think you can cut me out? I built everything you are. Then I will be nothing." Julian forced her toward the door. "At least I will be nothing with my sons, and the woman I should never have doubted." He pushed Victoria and her lawyer into the hallway and slammed the door. When he turned back, Natasha had sat down again, tears streaming down her face as she comforted the crying twins. Julian stood helpless, watching his family hurt because of his failure to see the truth 3 years ago. "I am going to fix this," he said quietly. "I promise you, I am going to make this right." Natasha looked up at him, her cheek still red from the slap. "You cannot fix 3 years with promises, Julian. You fix it by proving every single day that you mean it." He nodded, understanding that his journey to redemption had only just begun. The next morning, Julian sat in his lawyer's office with a stack of documents. His attorney, James Morrison, looked at him with concern as Julian signed papers that would change everything. "You understand what this means? By adding your testimony to Natasha's lawsuit against your family, you are essentially testifying against your own mother. The Westfield name will be dragged through every newspaper in the country." "Good." Julian signed another document. "Let everyone see what she did. Let the world know the truth." He had spent the night compiling every piece of evidence Thomas had gathered. Bank statements showing payments to fake witnesses. Emails between Victoria and the lab technician who fabricated the paternity test. Text messages proving she had orchestrated Natasha's blacklisting from employment. The documentation was damning and complete. "I also want to establish a trust fund for Owen and Lucas, separate from family money. Something Victoria cannot touch or control."
Ow.
Julian slid another paper across the desk. "And I want to pay all of Natasha's legal fees. She should not have to worry about affording lawyers while fighting my mother." James nodded slowly. "Your mother will retaliate. She has resources and connections. So do I, and unlike her, I am willing to tell the truth regardless of how it makes me look." Building trust through actions, Julian did not go back to Natasha's apartment that day, or the next. Instead, he sent a contractor to repair not just her door, but the entire apartment. New locks, fixed plumbing, repaired heating system. He arranged for groceries to be delivered weekly, left anonymously at her door. He set up a bank account in her name and deposited money each month, enough to cover rent and expenses without being overwhelming. But he did not contact her directly. He understood that trust could not be bought or rushed. It had to be earned through consistent action over time. On the 5th day, Natasha called him. Her voice was cautious. "The contractor said you sent them. The groceries keep appearing. The money in the account I never opened. You and the boys should not have to struggle while I figure out how to be the father and husband I should have been." Julian kept his voice steady. "I am not trying to control you or buy my way back. I am trying to provide what I should have provided 3 years ago. I do not need your charity. It is not charity. It is responsibility. Those are my sons. You are my wife. I failed you both. Let me at least make sure you are not choosing between food and heat anymore." Natasha was quiet for a long moment. "The boys ask about you. Owen saw you that day. He wants to know who the sad man was." Julian's chest tightened. "Can I see them? Just for an hour? I will come when it is convenient for you. I will leave when you ask me to."
Saturday afternoon.
2 hours. Bring nothing except yourself. Meeting his son Saturday arrived, cold and bright. Julian stood outside Natasha's apartment door, more nervous than he had been in his entire life. He had negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But the thought of meeting his sons properly made his hands shake. Natasha opened the door. The apartment looked different. Cleaner, warmer, better lit. The repairs had made it livable, though it was still small and modest. Owen and Lucas sat on the floor playing with wooden blocks. They looked up when Julian entered, their green eyes curious and bright. "Boys, this is Julian. He is your father." Natasha's voice was calm, but careful. "He wants to spend some time with you." Owen, slightly bolder than his brother, stood up and walked over. He studied Julian with serious intensity. "You made Mama cry." The words hit Julian like a punch. "I did. I made a terrible mistake. I hurt your mama when I should have protected her. Are you going to make her cry again?" "I am going to try very hard not to. But if I do, I hope she will tell me so I can fix it." Lucas joined his brother, less cautious now. "Do you know how to build towers?" Julian sat down on the floor, his expensive suit forgotten. "I am not sure. Can you teach me?" For the next 2 hours, Julian played with his sons. He learned that Owen loved anything with wheels, and Lucas preferred stuffed animals. He discovered that Owen was protective of his brother, and Lucas had a laugh that sounded like bells. He watched them interact with Natasha, saw the bond they shared, the security she had given them despite having nothing. When the time was up, Owen hugged him goodbye. Lucas followed his brother's lead, his small arms wrapping around Julian's neck. The feeling of holding his sons, of having them trust him enough to embrace him, broke something open inside Julian's chest. The trial, 3 months later. Natasha's lawsuit against Victoria Westfield went to trial. The courtroom was packed with reporters, society members, and people curious to see the Westfield family drama unfold. Victoria sat at the defendant's table, her face a mask of cold composure. Julian took the stand as a witness for Natasha. He testified about the fabricated evidence, the fake paternity test, the systematic destruction of his wife's life. He submitted the documentation Thomas had gathered, bank records that proved his mother's conspiracy. Victoria's lawyer tried to discredit him, suggesting he was influenced by Natasha, that he was not thinking clearly. But Julian remained steady. My mother did not protect me. She destroyed the person I loved most in this world. She kept me from my children for 3 years. She nearly killed my wife through her cruelty. That is not protection. That is control taken to criminal extremes. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Witness after witness confirmed the conspiracy. The lab technician broke under questioning and admitted to fabricating the paternity test. The actors who had posed for the photographs testified about being hired. Employees who had been paid to give false statements recanted under oath. In the end, the jury awarded Natasha significant damages. But more importantly, Victoria's reputation was destroyed. The woman who had built her life on social status and family legacy was exposed as a manipulator who had committed fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. Rebuilding what was broken, rebuilding trust, took time. Julian did not rush Natasha or pressure her for forgiveness. He showed up every Saturday to see the boys. He paid for a better apartment, one with enough space for the twins to have their own room. He covered all expenses without expecting gratitude. Slowly, Natasha began to soften. She let him stay for dinner. She allowed him to help with bedtime routines. She started telling him about the boys' days, sharing the small moments he had missed. 6 months after the trial, Julian arrived for his usual Saturday visit and found Natasha waiting with something in her hands. It was a photograph from their wedding day, the two of them laughing, completely in love. I kept this hidden for 3 years because it hurt too much to look at. She handed it to him. But Owen found it last week and asked why Mama and the sad man were so happy. I think it is time we tried to be happy again. Are you sure? Julian's voice was rough with emotion. No, but I am willing to try. For the boys, for the people we used to be, and the people we can become. 1 year after Julian broke down Natasha's door, the family celebrated the twins' 4th birthday in a park filled with sunshine and laughter. Owen and Lucas ran through the grass, their joy infectious. Grace was there, along with Robert, who had finally found the courage to stand against his wife. Julian and Natasha sat on a blanket watching their sons play. They were not fully healed yet. Some wounds took years to mend, but they were together, and that was enough. I will spend the rest of my life proving you can trust me, Julian said quietly. Natasha leaned her head on his shoulder. I know, you already have. Above them, Owen shouted for his parents to watch him climb the jungle gym. Lucas waited at the bottom, ready to catch his brother if he fell. They were a team, these twins. They protected each other the way family should. Julian understood now what he had not understood before. Love was not about control or perfection. It was about trust, sacrifice, and showing up even when it was hard. It was about choosing someone every single day and proving that. Choice through action. He had almost lost everything because he believed lies instead of truth. Because he let fear and doubt poison what should have been unshakable. But he had been given a second chance. He would not waste it. As the sun set on the birthday party, Julian held Natasha's hand and watched his sons laugh. This was redemption. Not in grand gestures or dramatic moments, but in the quiet joy of being present for the people you loved. The road ahead would not be easy. Trust once broken required constant care to repair, but Julian was ready for that work. He was ready to be the father his sons deserved and the husband Natasha had always needed. Some stories do not have happy endings, but this one, born from pain and rebuilt with patience, was finding its way toward hope. And sometimes, hope was enough to build a future on. The end.